Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us at today's MetaChat titled Digital Transformation in Banking, What's Next? We're so happy to have all of you here. I hope you are doing well wherever you are joining us from. And I think one of the things that we're happy about is the opportunity to engage further on topical issues that impact your businesses, impact everyone, because ultimately, as MetaMap, we are very passionate about ensuring that we enable borderless growth for everyone. And we do that in several ways, one of which is to build a powerful identity protocol to make trust between strangers online effortless. And again, beauty about access is that people who were previously excluded can now become included and have opportunities that makes them grow. And that's what we do with our business partners as well, to support their dreams, to ensure customers are satisfied and the experience continues to improve from time to time. So once again, you're very welcome to today's Meta Chat. And like I said earlier, the topic is digital transformation in banking. What next? I'm going to spend some time talking about the current trends, what is going on, what are banks doing, what are financial companies doing in terms of improving their efficiency, serving their customers better, and also delivering innovative financial solutions to their clients. So we'll spend some time, like I said, touching on some of these key topics, but also how you can take action to plug into some of these new trends and what you can do to meet your goals. But of course, how can also support you as your trusted partner in this journey. I will not be doing this alone. I have what I like to call my expert colleagues on the call with me, and two of them will join me, Dario and Nico. I will spend time, like I said, going through these interesting topics and sharing thoughts about them. So again, we want to invite you to also participate in the conversation. We have the chat function available. So please, as we talk, as we share thoughts, please share your thoughts as well. Engage us. If you want to share a comment, we're happy to read your comments from the comment section. I think I see a few people already saying a few things. Hello, Divine, welcome. And Malachi, thank you for joining us. So please make use of the chat functionality to share your thoughts. And if you have questions as well as we go ahead, we would like to take them as well. So once again, you're very welcome. And Dario, Nico, would you like to join me so we can get right into it? Welcome, Olawale. Welcome, David. Very nice to have you guys here. And I think we have a lot of people from Nigeria. So again, the focus will be Nigeria. I think one thing that strikes me, and even more recently in Nigeria, is the changes that we experienced. I think one of the things that was very pivotal was how the cashless policy was handled and how it became very apparent that people needed to have a digital means to do transactions, to make payments, but also a reliable digital need to be met. Also, recently we have the open banking regulations that were approved and released, and that's also created a number of thoughts as it relates to how people can better serve clients again because of access to data being the core thing, and banking data at that. So again, you see a lot of conversations around that today and in the future, where you're talking about how APIs are going to be very essential with respect to these new developments. So once again, welcome my colleagues Dario and Nico. And let me just kick off the conversation with respect to digital transformation in banking. Like I touched on earlier, in Nigeria, for example, there have been things that we've seen, and it's not a new topic really, because over the past 2, 3 years, it has been a buzzword, right, in terms of transformation. I know some banks had a whole new team set up to drive transformation, looking at internal processes, looking at how the clients are served, looking at how new products come into the market, also adopting things that have happened globally in Nigeria or in Africa. And that's one thing that MetaMap, we're proud to say that we not only focus on Nigeria, but focus on many other countries across the world. So you find that we're able to learn from what happens in Argentina, for example, and apply that to our clients in Nigeria. So it'll be great to get your thoughts, Nico, in terms of the trends that you're seeing globally. How are banks transforming? How are they engaging to improve their own processes? how they're engaging to improve client experience, and what are those topical things that will be worth sharing today. Nice to have you, Nico.
Thank you, Deji, for the warm introduction. Great pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for the audience to join us today for this very interesting session with Dario Calderon as well, a very knowledgeable person about digital transformation, about banks and technology in general. I should say, first, a couple introductory words about myself so that you probably have a framework and a background of who am I and why we're dealing about these topics. I've been working for several years for MetaMap and many other years more in the technology space. And these words that you mentioned, digital transformation, I should say, have been like a common denominator for every single technology related conversation around financial services. I would say there's not one single company not talking about digital transformation today, especially when we refer to the banking sector. Um, from an internal perspective in MetaMap, we do see a couple trends happening. I wouldn't say they're new trends, but they have been here with us for like, what, 10 years, maybe a bit more. And it's difficult to have a conversation about digital transformation, about banking, about financial services, without even referring some of these terms that will accompany today during the session. So we basically observed four high-level trends. We're gonna jump into detail into each one of these as long as we progress in the conversation. But I think it's a good idea to just mention all four of them to sort of set the framework for what's coming next and to give a background and context to everyone here in regards to what we're referring about. So trend number one, and this is especially relevant for emerging markets, namely Nigeria, namely other African markets. This is going to be mobile banking. It's, I would say, impossible to have a relatable conversation without first referring to this trend. Uh, I always like to think about the African example where mobile banking sort of leapfrogged other technologies that did take place in other markets. I'm from Argentina, saying hello from Buenos Aires, a market that I would say follows the typical technological trend of one tendency or one new technology coming after the one that preceded it. For example, mobile banking in Latin America as a whole, in Argentina in particular, came before landline phones, and before that there was an older technology, and so on and so forth, up until the invention of the electricity, I would say. The case for Africa, as you know, is definitely different. Mobile banking leapfrogged many other technologies that were in the middle, and that really explains how big this technology is today and the actual levels of penetration, for example, in Nigeria, also are tied to this broader high-level technological phenomenon. So I would say tendency number one would be mobile banking. The numbers keep on increasing year after year. And not only that, more people are starting to be connected to digital financial services through the phone, but the speed at which this tendency is happening keeps on increasing year after year. So our perspective is that the mobile banking revolution will keep on happening, and 5 years from now, 10 years from now, who knows how many more years, this tendency is gonna be penetrating the markets even more and more and more, especially after phenomena like COVID and other things that are happening or happened in the past 5 years, right? Moving on to tendency number two, AI is a hot topic. I think nobody is missing on this, or nobody's trying to miss the big conversation about AI. Dario and myself, we're gonna have an open discussion about how AI is both a challenge and an opportunity for emerging companies in the financial sector. And not only that, but why this poses a double benefit for companies: an outfacing benefit in terms of leveraging customer experience and really setting a new standard for what a client expects out of a company in terms of experience, in terms of having an agile, a fast, swift process when consuming a financial service. but also looking indoors as well. How this revolutionizes the cost efficiency analysis, and for example, how it's no longer necessary to have a super big team answering a phone when you can simply program AI to solve that challenge internally. Um, Tendency number three that we are seeing is definitely open banking. This is tied to AI, given that AI feeds on a bigger data sample, and the bigger the data set, the more impact you can basically do with this data. So open banking, meaning that you can connect with fintechs, with banks, different agents in the sector, uh, essentially means that the data that you have from a single client grows exponentially. And this naturally repercutes on the personalization and how you can offer a better experience for that single client, regardless of the financial service that you are offering, in my opinion. And this is also tied to the fourth and last tendency, and opening the mic for you guys to comment here and take the torch. Tendency number four would be exactly data analysis and how this can be leveraged to make user experience personalized for really everyone from the moment they open an account up until when you are offering financial services or advice, for example, as to what investments they should be making. So personalization over these services leveraged on data analysis, fed by AI, fed by open banking. I observe a whole loop of tendencies tied together. It's not worth, in my opinion, analyzing each one of these phenomena individually, but they should be taken into account as a whole, because that's really what's happening. And our perspective is that companies that are not working intensively in either one of these four tendencies are either being left behind now, or they are prone to be left behind or run the competition from behind in 5, 10 years to come. So we're gonna have a deeper discussion about this. As MetaMap, we are experts also in this space, and seeing and analyzing these tendencies from inside, it's quite easy to see how they tie to each other, and how leveraging this is also probably the biggest opportunity and the biggest revolution that the financial services sector has faced in over many decades.
That's super useful, Nico. I think before we go on quickly, I've seen a few comments on the chat that one or two people can't hear. I want to just double check if other people can hear us. So please, if you can hear us, let us know in the chat. Just say yes or okay or something. So we know if it's just a limited problem. So yeah, thank you, David, for confirming that you can hear us. Mohammed and others who are struggling to hear, perhaps you can dial back in so you can then start to hear us. But once again, thank you for letting us know that in the chat. So, Nico, yeah, I think you touched on a very, very important set of things, right? And I like how everything is interwoven, of course, personalization off the back of data analysis. And that's what the customer of today and tomorrow wants. So, in Nigeria, for example, the average age is about 18.1 years. A lot of people who are customers today and near future are digital natives. The customer needs are things that speak to immediacy, convenience, speed, also reduce costs. So any innovation, any conversation has to have the customer needs in mind, right? So to your point, personalization becomes crucial off the back of data, back to your point about open banking and being able to, once I give consent, have my entire data profile analyzed and personalized service coming to me. Of course, AI has to get involved there because you can't do that manually. It is impossible. And we've seen even as simple as writing summaries or essays, right? Chat GPT and all the other AI tools, how quickly, of course, there are number of challenges which we will get to later, but importantly, mobile banking. And I like what you say about that because in Africa in particular, I think some stats suggest that smartphone penetration is currently about 55% or thereabout and should grow to about 60% in 2025. Most of the internet consumption in Nigeria and Africa is from the mobile phone. So the mobile device is essential. So in terms of a channel to provide service, it has to be mobile banking, or at least a mobile device as a strong channel. Of course, some people would get their service via traditional computers and internet and other devices, but the mobile phone has to be in the center of the conversation. So great points that you mentioned, Nico. Dario, any thoughts from you on these points?
Yes, I was checking the chat and I love to see that someone was saying that AI it's one of the biggest trends that we need to cover in not only in the banking market but also in each of the different markets that we have worldwide. And I was reading a couple of weeks ago that, for instance, the government of Spain just approved 4 millions of euros for the as a budget for an organization which is like controlling or like moderating the AI for the whole country. So definitely, it's something that we need to add to our different operations, to our markets, to our companies, but we need to do it well. So it take me to the first challenge that probably we can discuss today, which is the human being. So there is something else that people is speaking about, which is AI is going to replace the human beings, right? And I think it's not necessary in this way because we need to have people who can moderate, not controlling probably, but moderate the way that we are using the AI for the different purpose that every company has, even in banking market. So, and not also for the AI, but also for the data, because Nicolas and David, you were speaking about the different information that we can get from the when we have the correct tools in our companies. So having a human being who is capable of to take information in real time and also support the different companies to take decisions quicker than before we did in the past years, it's crucial. So I think these kind of tools, services, or whatever we can call we would like to call it, it's not going to replace the human person, the human beings, the persons. I think we need the banking companies has this challenge to get the ideal profile of people who can manage this kind of things like AI and also the data that we can get. Having the correct tools, as I mentioned it's allow us to have information in real time in seconds. So it is important for us to have the people who can analyze this information and take decisions in the past. So I think it's our first challenge in this banking market. So it is important for us to be clear about this. We need to have the human being, the right human beings to analyze this kind of information.
I think an important thing to mention around that challenge, Dario, which of course I agree, is that the standard for client experience is continually raising, and it's set to continue raising with AI in particular. Because AI is a wonderful abstract concept. Everybody's trying to figure out what we're gonna do with AI, how it's gonna impact our normal lives, our work life, our personal lives. But one thing is for sure, and that is that client experience is gonna become much, much better. Like you won't be waiting hours in line on the phone call because now you have the chatbot. One, these chatbots are, I would say, not perfect, at least not perfect, and they are set to become much more proficient at tackling customer needs. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what's next beyond the chatbot? Probably nobody knows, but one thing is for sure that the only winner here is the client. Things are gonna get much better for the client. This is both an opportunity and a benefit, naturally, for everyone and most of the population, but it's also a big challenge because if the company in the road next to me or in the block next door, uh, if they are doing a better job leveraging AI and obtaining essentially a better client experience using these tools, that's going to be a big challenge for me. And how do I retain my clients and how do I engage them essentially when everybody else is using the tools in the right way? This also happens with the other tendencies, right? They are a double fold or a double-edged sword, if you will. They're both a big opportunity for growth, how to eat the market very fast, very swiftly, in speeds and ways that were unimaginable a couple of years ago. But they're also a big challenge because if everybody else is doing it, you also need to up your game in that sense.
Yeah, and if I may chime in, absolutely. I think you're spot on because I think it's still early days, to be honest, as it relates to AI. And of course, there have been conversations about how it is going to be regulated and managed, but that is always going to be done. At some point, there will be regulations. Also, like we had data protection regulations that have come through across the world, right? But data, we all agree, is essential. And to your point about improving customer experience, it now becomes a strategic conversation, right? Because your customer needs would always evolve, and it will be less. You will have less malleability because customers will just go on Twitter and say that this is bad service, and your entire business model could go to crumb. So we can't, because of the concerns or challenges, ignore the strategic advantage that we can get from that. So it's high time to think about it, and maybe linking it to machine learning and some of the conversations around that. I have seen in some previous experience how tasks that were mundane and time taking, like reconciliations, right, have been quickened. So we talk about chargebacks, talk about how long it takes for your funds to be refunded to you or reversed to your accounts. That, of course, has improved because in some instances, machine learning has been adopted, robotics have been adopted to be able to match transactions quicker and reverse and get your customer happy. That for me is a clear example of how improvements come to play. Maybe Nico, if you want to touch on very quickly additional trends that you've seen that banks or financial companies have adopted as it relates to robotics, machine learning, in process improvement type things.
I think, sorry, I think it is. And also speaking about that, Nicolas was saying something very important, which is that how to change the behavior of the consumers, right? So we have this traditional bank, which is a market who is okay, which is taking our customers to an office or probably to a store in order to get a new loan, probably. So they analyze a lot of documents in order to see if this person is allowed to take a loan or something like that. But something that we need to to keep in mind is that digital transformation it's already adopted by different companies already. So there is this company which is technology banking, which is doing this research. And I was reading the other day that they found that there are 400 of digital banks already in worldwide. So it means that there are some banks which are fully digital. So they don't have stores, they don't have people attending you, they don't have probably a computer in a commuter, and you can talk with someone else in order to attend your request. So it is important for the traditional bank to assume this challenge, which is our second challenge, and it's how to make this digital transformation faster, quicker. So there are different ways to do it. So sometimes it's a little tricky how to make this transition because we are. I was reading the other day too that change behavior in the people. It's one of the most difficult things to do, but I think we can do it because after the COVID-19, it's something that uh, it was working on and improving because people, everybody knows that people are able to go to an office, to a store. So some of the companies started to work on that already. And also this give the opportunity of this or give the space to create this digital banking already. So at least in Latin America, I know already probably 10 different digital banks, and they have they don't even have a store, or so everything it's doing through the mobile, through the website, and it is important for us to be aware of that. So for me, this is our the second challenge that this market has, and it is important to understand how to do it. So make this transition. It's not only how to create a QR code to make the payments, or probably how to transfer money from one person to another. We need to go beyond that and doing almost everything through the digital bank. So through the digital channels. So it is important to understand that, I think.
I think you
Yeah,
nailed it. Oh, sorry. I think you nailed it
but
with one of the last words that you say. And you say almost digital, because you see many trademark, legacy, traditional banks. We can name it in many different ways, trying to catch up with these digital banks, the so-called neobanks, which I think is a term that we had to reanalyze for some reasons, because when a legacy bank is adapting one of these practices of going digital, of streamlining processes through the phone, no longer requiring clients to go to a brick and mortar store to open an account or ask for a product, are are they new? Are they old? Like that's a very ambiguous terms that is worth a reanalysis, in my personal opinion. But going back to the first point, if your processes are not fully digital, you are not digital. It's a binary term in that regard. You're either digital or you are either not digital, because you're a mix of both, right? And if you cannot streamline 100% of your processes, you are still at some point or another requiring your clients to go to that brick and mortar store, and essentially sort of ruining the experience at some point or the other. So the digital transformation in that regard is a binary one. You either convert into a digital one or you are not a digital bank. This could take naturally years, and the number of processes that you do need to take into consideration to make this leap, um, it's endless. It's really endless, especially with big, complex, traditional organizations that are sometimes international. Streamlining all these processes together is really hard. We're gonna touch on this point maybe at the end of the conversation. At MetaMap, we are sort of experts analyzing how a complex international organization with compliance regulations in many different countries, many areas having to converge to sort of transform how a company operates in and the ways it operates in. The complexity is just endless. So it's I thought it was important to mention that this leap has many perspectives that we sometimes don't take into consideration, and that leap is binary. So it's key to take that into account when embarking on this digital transformation journey, in my opinion.
yeah, I think that's a great point, Nico. I think to your point, right? For me, digital transformation goes beyond being called a neobank, right? Because you have to think about the market you operate in. In Nigeria, for example, financial inclusion, people say 60%, some people say a bit more, but there are people today who are still not fully included in financial services. So if they need to access service, right, they can't get it until they go to, in some cases, a physical brick and mortar bank, because of course there's the element of trust, but also the infrastructure. Not everybody has a smartphone. So in my mind, if you are a traditional institution that serves through a brick and mortar, you can also be digitally transformed in terms of your process efficiency to serve in your brick and mortar a bit better. Again, customer experience. The channel is what is different, but the processes and the experience should be top notch, should be digitally transformed. That's how I like to think about it, so that we don't always think that you've not been digitally transformed if you're not called a neobank. That's not correct, right? It's ultimately around what the customer needs and getting into them the most efficient manner. So to the point about trust, and I find that a lot. Like, interestingly, my mom, she's retired. One of the conversations she's always had was the fear of getting her pension stolen, because if she uses an ATM or internet banking, things there've been a lot of stories, right, that have been shared about fraud and getting access to take monies from accounts that are not those people's ones. And like I said earlier in the call, recently, because of the cashless policy that was in place, people were forced to then use these channels. So a lot of people came in. There's a lot of talk about reliability, stability, but there's always a concern of security. And maybe, Dario, I'll come to you. Of course, one of the challenges of scaling a digital program or digital channel is cybersecurity, fraud, and the like. So, what are your thoughts around that? Of course, we should not do things because of cybersecurity concerns, but again, there are ways to think about it and ways to embed some of the remedies or controls as we design processes for transformation.
Yeah, I think it was my third challenge, which is security, and it is important for us to understand. Okay, we have this digital transformation. We are doing every transaction through my phone. We are doing every request through the website, and also the way that these or the yes the way that these companies are attending my request, my I think it's important the security, right? Because yesterday someone asked me, "And what happened if I lost my phone? So where is the security?" So yeah, I think it's a different way to of the security that we need to have, and also because I like to give this example, which is okay. We have these new streaming platforms in which we can find, I don't know, Netflix, we can find HBO, and they are using the internet as a channel for the service that they are providing, right? So it is I think it's the same way in the digital banking. So they are the company which is providing this kind of services, and they are doing through our phone, which is the tool that we have every day in our hands, right? So something that I like to do every time that someone is asking me, okay, you need to do this, you need to fill this document to make a request. All the time I am asking to these persons, it's something that I can do through my phone, because I think it's the tool that we have, right? As I told previously. But beyond that, we need to speak about the security not only for the users but also for the companies, right? For the banks. So for me, as a company which is providing these kind of services, who is making these loans to these persons, I know that there is this worry about, okay, how can I do it and have the trust and the confidence to give money to the person who is behind of a phone, right? So it is important to have a great security product or solution that you can implement. So the wheel it's already created, so you need to use it. We are not saying that the banks need to create this kind of security, these kind of processes, how to do it, but also as the streaming example that I did, and they are leveraging in these internet services that we have in every country. So the way that the banking market can leverage this is in different companies that are providing this kind of security services, right? Through different ways. So at least in MetaMap, we have these solutions and products, sorry, created already, which is in our hands, and you can implement it very easy in order to understand or in order to know if this person behind me is saying that is the person who is saying. Just for give an example, at least here in Colombia, I'm not sure if I told you that I am based in Colombia. We have one of the biggest banks that we have in our country was or they created this new service, right, about digital banks. So okay, you can open an account just using your phone, take a selfie, and then take a picture of your document. And they did that almost 5 years ago, and it was a service, an additional service that they were offering to their customers. Since December of the last year of 2022, they decided to split this, and they were saying that this is not a service only. This is not only a service. This is a company that we need to focus on. So they divided these two different banks, they split it in two different banks, which is the traditional bank, the biggest one that we know, and also they are working in this new way to transform. As the way that I am seeing it is because they need to be ready for this digital transformation in order to say, okay, what happened if the traditional banking in some point are going to say, okay, there is not the way that we need to operate anymore, right? So we have this other company which is taking our customers and take them to this digital transformation and take them to this new way to operate the different bank services that we have. And I think it was also like a free trial that doing, and all the services are digital. So the attention, I got my account 3 years ago, I think, and I had two different issues with the account. So it's the behavior, as I told you in the beginning, how we can change that. And the way was, okay, you need to create this. You have this chat in the phone or in the website, and you can chat with a person, or probably it's as Deji mentioned, a machine learning, which was answering, okay, what do you need, what happened, let me check, and everything through this model of attention. And they resolved the inquiries that I had. So I think it's important to understand this kind of way that the bank it's working right now, because something that Nicolas mentioned yesterday was, if you are not part of the game, you are out of the game already, right? So you need to work on that. You need to be part of this. You need to be in the game. And the first thing that you need or one of the first things that you need to work on, it's security. And also, I remember that the same bank that I am speaking about, they lost their domain of the website a couple of years ago, and they had to change it. There are no way to recover this domain, because we are under these different cyber attacks every day. And for me, the lesson learned from this situation was, the security don't need to be or don't have to be reactive. It needs to be proactive. So we need to work on security from the first moment that we are creating this kind of model of services. So security needs to be the priority in this kind of different services that we are offering, I think.
Yeah, that's super useful, Derek. I think one thing you touched on, I would like to expand upon. I'm judging from the comments we have in the chat, people are a bit more interested in security. I think behavior, right? Because there's elements of, and security for me is in different layers, right? There's the elements of I, as the user, being conscious, being aware of security. So companies, of course, have to do education, because do not click on certain links. There are phishing scams. How you can protect your devices. If we're talking about the channel being the mobile phone, the things that every customer, every user must do to protect their data, to protect their devices. Because if you are careless, right, we talk about device takeovers and whatnot, because people have access to passwords, pins, and ID numbers, right? So there's a responsibility for every user to protect their information, protect access to the information. Of course, there's a responsibility for the institutions in terms of, so for example, if you're handling card data, the PCI DSS standards, right? There are things about getting your data compliance certification done, testing and retesting your vulnerabilities. So security cuts across in terms of layers, but also responsibilities cut across both the institution and the user. So for me, continuous awareness, continuous education. So as a business on this call, I would expect and encourage that you provide periodic updates to your customers to say, this is how you should better protect yourselves. As we talk about advice for personalization, for investments, for whatever business you provide your clients for, it's important to also provide advice on how to secure yourself, right? And that's also a source of endearment and stickiness to your organization if you are able to show that you truly care for your customers' security. And likewise, as an institution working with companies like MetaMap, of course, we'll talk about that later in terms of how we can also help you enhance your profile in terms of controls and security as it relates to your services. So moving on quickly, I'm mindful of time, and thank you. I see a number of comments and questions. I think we had asked you already to say what kind of transformation journey are you going through in your company, and some people say you don't know, some are still thinking about it. But I think the point is that it's a journey, not a destination, because the object is the customer experience, customer need, and that keeps on changing. We talk about technology that has advanced in the past couple of years, and like I said, it will continue to evolve. We can't say that we innovated 2 days ago and we've done it. Things would be required to innovate even further as we progress. And I think earlier we had a comment about blockchain, and it would be great to get a quick sense of that because Nigeria is also blockchain. People think it's the same thing as cryptocurrency, and there's been some regulatory pronouncements as it relates to cryptocurrency. And for example, the Central Bank of Nigeria has launched an e-naira, which is like a central bank digital currency. But beyond currencies, right? I think, of course, blockchain is much wider than that. To get your thoughts, maybe Nico, if you can share a very high-level summary of what your thoughts are in terms of applications and how we can start to think about it. Could it be in smart contracts? Could it be in just in trade? What other things can blockchain unlock for businesses?
Of course, I think there's one big blockchain use case that we're probably missing or it's not being held in like with enough consideration, in my opinion, and that is international payments. I think you nailed it just perfectly with that last word that you said, trade. We usually talk about expansion, we talk about growth. Essentially, we are trying to always, from the meta world, we're trying to answer the question, how do I expand my business and how do I grow my customer base without facing like regulatory challenges, in this case also technical challenges. That is, how do I connect a payments infrastructure from Nigeria to Argentina to Australia to China to the US and so on and so forth. I think blockchain is a good candidate for that. It's been a hype word as well for what, 5 years now, and we're still trying to figure out what a practical use case would look like in real life. Because I remember back in 2017, 2018, when blockchain was just starting to pop up as a hype word, like AI is now, right? And everybody was saying the world will change with blockchain. Okay, how and why? And nobody seemed to have an answer for that. And I think it's just now that we're starting to connect blockchain with other technology concepts that used to be hype back in the day, but it's just now that we're trying to really draft and design how a solution would look like in real life, in practice. I think the biggest use case, as I was saying before, for blockchain is international payments, is trade, is opening the frontiers of a digital economy. And when you tie this with uh, a borderless cybersecurity platform that solves the compliance framework of that new model, of that new technology ecosystem, blockchain is a good companion in terms of the technicals and the payments and how everything comes together. Of course, there's a technical conversation to be had around blockchain, but from my perspective, opening the borders should also be held as the first priority in terms of that. And when we think about blockchain, the question that we would be trying to solve is, how do I open my market? How do I expand my customer base? I think blockchain is also a good connector to the rest of the financial ecosystem, because when fintech companies, when banks, and even governments, you mentioned the Inaira, this is a project that it's also being held in consideration in Latin America as well. Some of the audience members might have heard of El Salvador, a country in Central America that recently incorporated Bitcoin as sort of a national currency, in a way that it's allowed in international payments, it's allowed in international trade as well. Uh, we expect to see more and more of these changes as we delve into the future. And blockchain seems to be that underlying technology that will support all of these political initiatives. Many things needed from a political perspective, a social perspective, economic perspective as well. But blockchain is probably a good candidate to solve many of these questions. Um, before we end with this blockchain related conversation, I do have something to add about security that's quite relevant and will probably spark a couple ideas in the audience and in this conversation as well. And that is, we always talk about cybersecurity from a company perspective, and that is, how can we prevent more fraud coming our way, right? Should we have a more advanced biometric solution? How we detect document alteration? How we detect a bunch of things that are going on? And usually the answer to that question is AI. Like most solutions nowadays are leveraged on AI, and that's usually the answer, right? But let me put this question forward. What happens when AI comes into the hands of the other side of the table? When a fraudster can fraud a document, can deepfake biometric features with AI. Now we have a AI competing against AI for who is tricking who. And I don't think nobody has an answer to that question. Nobody knows how this is going to end up. But that's definitely another challenge that we do need to take in consideration. And probably AI based solutions nowadays should start incorporating that technology against other AIs. Because as security becomes more advanced and as your tools to combat fraudsters become more advanced over time, so will fraudsters. And I think there's a bigger conversation to be had about this. And it's not about technology, it's not even about digital transformation, it's not about banks, it's not about financial services. It's a broader AI discussion on how to combat AI with AI. But just putting that question forward, because I'm sure many of the audience members will have interesting ideas about this.
You just painted a doomsday scenario there, Nico, because it's scary. I think I've heard different accounts, people talking about voice cloning, of course, talk about deep fakes with your pictures and talk about biometrics. So people try to put in liveness, do as I do to be sure it is you. But again, to your point, Dario, that humans can never be fully replaced. So there are things that human beings, so example, talk about multi-factor authentication, right? There's elements of putting in a pin, confirming your biometrics. Perhaps there's a secret word, perhaps there's a secret code, in addition to AI-enabled biometrics that can be still humanoid enough to address some of those concerns. But again, to your point, it's something worth thinking about as we enhance our experience in digital transformation, both as companies, but also as users, right? Because we can't divorce ourselves from using these services and protecting ourselves in that regard. And maybe to segue just on that point about how to think about processes, how to think about controls, how to think about efficiency. Maybe Dario, you can talk about what MetaMask can do to support clients, particularly as it relates to being able to customize your flow and the various options that can be considered to manage very, very obvious and serious concerns around security, but also to be able to drive strategy to ensure there's stickiness when you talk about customer experience, but also efficiency when you talk about your processes and being able to be as digital as required, even if you're not going to be called a neobank. So for me, it's applicable to both the traditional institution, but also those who want to be called or seen or experienced as neobanks. Dario, and of course, Nico, you can always chime in as you like.
Yes, I think it's really tricky, these things about AI. So as you mentioned, Deji, if we can see how people is cloning the voice of different singers, I don't know, they are trying to do a new jingle with this voice. It's something that if you see beyond that, it's a little it can be a little worry because what happened tomorrow? What can we do? What can we do with this AI? So, but anyway, there are different players in this game. So banking needs to be focused on what they are good, and it's okay. It's our banking market. It's the way we need to continue working. And the other player that we have, it's companies as MetaMap, which providing this kind of security through the identity verification. So our main job is continue improving these services or products or solutions that we have based in different new movements like AI, that this one that we are suffering right now, And it is our main job. So leave the job to these kind of companies so we can provide this, and banking can continue to focus on their good, which is manage the money of the people, right? But how we can prove that I am the person who is saying that I am behind this telephone, behind this mobile phone. Okay, MetaMap can determine if this person is the person who they are saying they are, and through different solutions and products that we have. So I don't know if you would like to mention one of them, a couple of them very quickly, because we are almost in the top of the hour.
Yeah, sure. I guess we'll be starting off from things just opening an account or experiencing onboarding, right? In terms of ID verification, in terms of your face match and biometric, we can just touch on why that is important, particularly as it relates to compliance to regulations and managing your cost of compliance and balancing that against your customer experience, right? Because if you're a financial services provider, most likely you are regulated, right? So there's compliance, but also cost of compliance, but also customer experience. So perhaps the onboarding experience, you can share a few things around that.
Yes, yes, and I think it's very important, or it is. It calls my attention that we are attacking different fronts of this. So as you mentioned it, we are providing a different onboarding experience for the end user, which is easier for them to open an account or probably ask for a loan, or different processes that we are used to do it in a office or something like that. It's how we can improve the user experience, and at the same time we are providing this kind of security to the banks, right? To say, hey, this person is who they are saying they are, and it is important to provide this kind of security for the both sides, right? For the user and also for the bank, and also the different laws that we have in our different countries. So how we can manage this kind of situations in which our laws say, okay, you need to get these different items that you need to accomplish in order to provide a loan or something like that, or a service or something. So we are, as I said, we are attacking these different fronts, which the products and solutions that we have. So yeah, I think it's the way.
I don't think we naturally have time to cover these in depth and today, but it's always a good idea to invite people to learn more about MetaMap through our website. I think borderless will be a word that you guys will find in LinkedIn, not only in our website, but really it's taking over the whole digital reputation space, and for good reason, right? When we were referring before to how can I open up my client base beyond my countries or even my continent's frontiers, um, borderless is the way. And as a borderless company, unlocking the borderless economy, that's the way we like to describe uh, MetaMap. It's quite interesting how you can connect to dozens of different databases, not only governmental databases, but data as well, sitting in silos across the whole world, and how you can connect to all of this information with one single click. uh, I think that's endless power at your hands. So inviting everyone to learn more about this borderless economy, this borderless world, and how it's unlocked by MetaMap.
Super. If I may expand on that very quickly, and rightly so, we're very deliberate about making this a thought piece, not a marketing piece. So we're not going to spend tons of time talking about each product. So I know I've seen a few questions asking for specific, but we invite you to just schedule something with us. We can take you through in detail what we have and how we can tailor it. I think one thing we're very clear about is customizing it to your use case for your journey, for your user journey. One quick example that I would give is we've heard in Nigeria in particular examples of people's BVNs or people's ID numbers being stolen and used to open accounts with lending companies to take loans as for their credit numbers, right? And people then wonder, why am I being told I owe money when I didn't take that? One of the things that we have that can help solve that problem is in as you onboard, putting a BVN, for example, whatever number that you put in there, it can be validated as correct. However, we can match the face on the government database, the face of the person trying to open the account, right? So you don't have an imposter who has stolen an ID number and a name, trying to open an account and take a loan and basically spoil someone else's name. That's a simple use case that can help not only secure somebody's identity, their credit profile and reputation, but also the company's integrity, that you do not give a wrong person a loan, and even think about your risk assets. Because if you give someone who was fraudulently obtaining a loan, you can count that loan as lost. So again, you're helping yourself manage your loan loss ratios and again your business integrity. So that's just one example of the many products and services that we have that helps address multiple pain points. So just one solution addressing customer experience, ID security issues, but also your company's loan book, right? So again, we're happy to set up a more detailed conversation with you and your company, take you in a big detail, it's a much more detail rather, of what we have on offer, but also even schedule the demo. And if you need to spend some time testing, you're happy to do that. But again, we can assure you that we are driven, it's our mission to drive a borderless world, which is why that one Nico said about being borderless. That for us is a big mission. And for us, it also ties into trying to get financial inclusion numbers higher, because the more you're able to serve and include more customers, more clients, particularly those who have not been banked or have not been reached, the better our mission is fulfilled. So again, we thank you for your comments, your questions, and I do hope I have addressed every comment or question you have. My colleague Laura has put some things in the chat, so we have a link in there to get a free product trial. So please, I encourage you to look at the chat and click on that. You can actually set up a quick account for yourself and test. So we have some free trials that you can enjoy from that. So again, my colleague Laura has put a link in the chat for you to be able to spend more time exploring what MetaMap has to offer as it relates to your business, your use case, even for your education. Even if you think you might not need it right now, I encourage you to use it, because education is important. That's one of the things we're trying to achieve with this call, with this MetaChat, and with this series, because we do this quite often, to educate ourselves, to learn from each other, because you don't know when you will need it. So I encourage everyone actually to please click on that link and spend some more time studying our product details. Before we wrap up, we have just a minute or two left. Any final words, Dario, Nico?
Well, from my side, only say thank you very much for joining this conversation. And also, as you mentioned, Deji, Laura has posted a lot of information in the chat window, so you can be directed there. And also, if you would like to connect with me through LinkedIn, please go ahead. I'm going to let my full name in the chat. And yeah, we are more than happy to help you to go with these security ways that we can provide in MetaMod. Nico.
Absolutely, happy to have a virtual coffee whenever. Super open to connecting with you on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop a message, a connection. You can also contact us by our corporate website as well, that Laura kindly shared over the chat, and we'll be super happy to kick off this conversation on a deeper level.
Super. Thanks, Dario. Thanks, Nico. And thank you, everyone. We are literally just about time. So I have shared my LinkedIn profile link on the chat as well, just in case you want to connect with me as well. You can see my colleagues one, Nicholas, and Dario's one is there as well. But again, we invite you to check our website, metamap.com, but also take advantage of the free product trials to get more insights and more information about what you can do. I know someone had asked a question about a website that can help to detect fraud. Well, we provide that service. I think the website stand alone to do that. However, like I said, please go through our details and you'll find much more information there. You can always schedule a talk to talk about your specific questions and use cases for that down the line. So we are at time. I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dario. Thank you, Nico, for your great insights. Thank you for your questions, your comments. Thank you, Laura, for helping us in the background. We really appreciate your time and wish you the very best way. Again, we're happy to take the conversation further with you directly, and we look forward to you contacting us. So wonderful. We wish you a wonderful rest of the day and week. Thank you all. Cheers. Bye bye.